Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the greatest show on earth, broken but glorious. Welcome to the show.
Hello and welcome to Broken but Glorious. I'm Chris Lappin. I'm delighted to be joined on the line by the professional Nathan Cruz. How are you doing this evening, Nathan?
I'm good, thank you very much for having me on. I apologise about the delay of this call.
That's fine. So, huge thanks for joining us this evening. So Nathan's joined us to promote Frontline and WrestleGate's double show on the 5th of October at the Rushcliffe Arena in Nottingham. So the event also has a live show from WrestleTalk. So it's 3 shows in one day. So that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So before we get into the shows, I can't believe you're still in your 20s. You've seemed to have been around forever.
No, it's I started so young. I started wrestling when I was 15.
Wow.
So yeah. Last week I had my 19th birthday, and this past summer I celebrated 13 years in the job, and 10 of them it's been my full-time occupation. So
wow.
Living a dream.
Yeah, when I put your wiki on this morning, I was thinking about 32, 33, because I was like, oh, I knew you started young, but I didn't realise it was that young.
Yeah.
So was there a wrestler you wanted to mould your style around when you started training?
It's funny, like when you first start, I think when you watch wrestling, it's very different to when you get into it and you find out what type of wrestler you're going to be. Growing up, I was such a huge Undertaker fan. Yeah. I was just absolutely enthralled with that character. But then, the reality set in when I'm not 6'8". I'm 6 foot pushing, and yeah, I know. Especially when I started wrestling, I was very small in stature. I was still growing. Like I said, I was only 15, so I was about 5'9" maybe. And then on my best day, would have been about 135 pounds. Really skinny kid, but no, I wasn't one of those skinny kids with like definition. No. I was like a skinny fat kid. I had no good genetics on my side to help me with this to begin with. But yeah, and then like the more I got into actually learning wrestling, and I looked to other guys that I was kind of like just. Those wrestlers that when I watched it as a fan, like I always knew they were good, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was that made them good, or at least like appeal to me. People like Triple H, Chris Jericho, Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels. Like I always enjoyed watching them, but I just I was so captivated by the Undertaker's character, and I mean I'm not taking anything away from the Undertaker's work to this day. I still think I regard him as one of the best storytellers that's ever laced up a pair of boots, but. It was those guys that started, like, I started to look at a bit more. People like Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko as well. Yeah. That whole group of talent was, I started drawing inspiration from a lot of them, particularly Chris Jericho.
I can see that.
I remember there was there's one stage in my career where you could have put a Polaroid of us next to each other and probably would have looked very similar. I had the blonde highlights, my hair styled exactly like him, and it was. Yeah, I was such a fan of Chris Jericho, and and still, I'm not saying that I am to these days. Like I recently tweeted that I don't think there's going to be a generation of Chris Jericho, an incarceration of him, that I won't find that won't inspire me. No, like every time he reinvents himself, he inspires me further. I just think he's so sharp and so on the ball with that stuff, and he always has been. Yeah,
I'll struggle to think of a favourite iteration of Chris Jericho, because every time he reinvents himself, it's something brilliant.
Yeah, he's so smart with it, and I think Chris Jericho is probably my biggest influence, I'd say, on my career. At least in my early days, which would be, I'd say, particularly through the ages of 17 through to like 25. Like I really molded my style around Chris Jericho.
Definitely. So take us back to your first match, and what do you remember about it in hindsight? Did you enjoy it? Was it any good?
I was so nervous. But the funny story was my training was terrible. I never knew this at the time. I was 15, and this was, the internet was around, but it certainly wasn't what it was today. No, we definitely didn't have the access to so many good training schools. We kind of just had the wool pulled over our eyes, and saw a wrestling school come to a local city that I live in, which is Hull. And that was it. Like, me and a bunch of friends was like, this is it. we're going to go train here. This is incredible. And we started training there, and then about 4 months passed, and yeah, we got the opportunity to have our debut. I was terrified. I got battered. I think back then, like, it was still very. It wasn't very protected as much as it was, say, in the 80s and the 90s, or even to a lesser extent those 2000s. But like at that point, like, you still kind of had to. I didn't think the lads that were in the ring, or the fellas that were in the ring, they still have a protection of the job, and you have to kind of prove yourself, I guess. And so yeah, it was just a rumble spot, and I got 7 bells just knocked out of me. When I shared my 13 years in the job on their social media, there's a picture from that match, and there's a handprint on my back where someone had smacked me, and yeah, the handprint's so defined. He hit me so hard, you can see the lines in his hands, and there's no exaggeration. Like, you can go and look at that picture, you can see where the lines in his fingers were when it connected to my back. And yeah, that was just my back. There was a few on my chest as well, and a few lumps on my head. But it was one of them that I was as nervous as I was, and as daunting as that is, going in and getting your head kicked in, like I just wanted it more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was just one of the things like, well, I've done this bit now, and now I've just got to keep going, improving myself, and keep improving. And yeah, fortunately for me, I started getting booked around the Yorkshire region, and El Guerrero is also from the Yorkshire region.
Yes, yeah.
And he saw me on shows when I was about 16, 17, maybe being 17. And for whatever reason, he saw something in me. And he reached out to me also on MySpace at the time, and said that he's impressed, would like to help me out. And then from there, he took me under his wing, and that's when I really started to learn. Before then, I just kind of got on whatever this guy had taught us before, which was, some of it was pretty dodgy, to be fair.
Wow.
It wasn't correct, but and I must have just got by on like natural charisma or whatever, and just a desire to want to do this. And yeah, and that's when things really started to change for me, was when Liggs took me under his wing.
So Alan Guerrero instantly went into your top 8 friends then.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember MySpace. God, that was a fly-by-night thing.
For the longest time, I preferred MySpace. I was fighting the fight for them and wasn't going to go on Facebook. But then I ended up having to just tap out because I was like, I've got no friends left. To talk to.
Yeah, same here. So the first match I saw you in was it must have been late 2014. It was an All-Star show in New Brighton. It was an 8-man tag. You teamed with Gangrel and Thunder. Oh, I can't remember the other guy. But against Dean Allmore, James Mason.
It sounds about right. Yeah, it would have been like the heel team versus the babyface team of the guys who was on the show that evening. Yeah, that sounds about right. All-Star, I mean, I can talk forever about All-Star Wrestling. When I was a kid, they used to come to the Hull City Hall, and me and my best friend, Matt Myers, me and him used to go and watch those shows together. And I remember getting the programme, and I was about 13, 14 years old, and looking at the back of it and seeing their schedule for where they're going to be, like all the towns that there was in addition to all the Butlins campsites. And I remember saying to Matty that, like, this, if we ever get into wrestling, this is where we need to work. And at least for me, that became my biggest aspiration in British wrestling. I wanted to work for All-Star Wrestling. And fortunately for me, in 2009, I had my first match there in the summer. Then I got asked back early on legit on New Year's Day of 2010, and then again later in the February, I think it was at Croydon. It might be in February or the January at Croydon, and I was against Tony Spitfire, and he put on, he knew what Brian liked, and it was the first time Brian was actually at the show, Brian Dixon.
Yes.
The other two had previously been Letitia, his daughter. So yeah, it was the first time Brian would see me, and yeah, credit to Spitty, he knew exactly what Brian would want to see, so he kind of helped me with that, and and then from there Brian started offering me more and more work, and then that was when I was able to take become full time and make it my profession. I was 19 years old, and like I said, Liggs certainly helped me get to that point. And through those first few years at Allstar, I was working a lot with him, so I was still learning from him. And to be fair, I still learn from Liggs every time that we've ever crossed paths or talk about wrestling. But joining Allstar was the biggest learning experience for me in this profession, bar none. I had access to so many people's brains that I could pick, and that would because I had a good attitude. Like, they took the time to teach me things as well, and it was. I could talk about All-Star Wrestling for absolutely days.
Yes,
I have so much love for that company and for Brian Dixon.
Do you hear that they're selling the famous house in Birkenhead?
The digs, I did, I saw that the other day. It was end of it, like they posted on their Facebook page. It's the end of an era. Yeah, it really is. I used to travel a lot, so I didn't spend like a lot of time in that house. But the summer of 2013, this was before I had my car, and Colossus Kennedy had actually left the team. He'd gone and got a day job, so I had to live in the digs for that summer. And so I've got a lot of fond memories in that house with a lot of good people that I'm still friends with to this day. That it's a big part of wrestling history. That I saw that online within British wrestling history.
Yeah, definitely. It's such a great show, All-Star. My kids love it. My 14-year-old kid loves it. My 4-year-old loves it. And it's very panto. And I love the way the good guys come out with a British flag and the bad guys come out with a pirate flag.
I've had some of my most physical contests I've also had at All-Star. I remember me and Dean Allmark having a 20-minute Ironman match once at the Victoria Hall in Stoke-on-Trent. Yeah, and I particularly really remember enjoying that match, but we came back from it really, we really got stuck into each other in that.
Yeah, definitely. There's some great wrestlers. The last one we went to was James Mason and Oliver Gray had a great match. I think the top rope broke halfway through as well.
Oh really? Yeah. Oh Christ.
It was a brilliant show. They're coming here again in October, so we're going to that one. I can't wait.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, good.
So I've just done maths in my head. That means you were 21 when you were crowned the inaugural Progress champion.
I was, yeah.
Wow.
It's funny actually. The reason I was late is me and my fiance were just having to sort out some stuff in the house, and I've got a big drawer of like memorabilia that I've kept over the years of like newspaper articles, magazines, and stuff. And I came across the first ever Progress Wrestling poster.
Wow.
And it simply states, "Do you remember when professional wrestling was awesome?" And it's just a picture of me. Wow. I was like, wow, the times have really changed now. But it was really cool to kind of look back on that. And I was 21 when I was the inaugural Progress champion. Yeah.
Must have been an amazing feeling for the company has put such faith in such young shoulders.
Yeah, I was baffled. Like, I remember getting the email about it, and then we agreed to this date. We agreed on a fee, and then we have this show coming up in London, and we was all kind of skeptical because this is back when British wrestling was struggling. Unless outside of All-Star Wrestling, you had like the odd good promotion coming through that was making like waves, like New Generation Wrestling. But then you'd have these one-off promotions that start, we're going to get into wrestling. I'm like, all right, okay, well, we'll see how it goes. But anyways, we get there and the atmosphere is incredible. And then, the week before that show, I found out that it was, wanting me to take the championship. And then, I remember leaving that. I did the first match with Colossus, and then before I went into the main event, I remember knowing it was coming down to me and Marty. I turned to Marty and I was like, mate, we've really got to deliver here. Yeah. Because one thing, him and Zach had just tore the house down as well. But two, like, I got a vibe about that place from the start. And and I've got great fond memories of Progress Wrestling and all the things that I did there. But those early chapters in particular, the 2 out of 3 falls at chapter 2 with Marty Scale for the title is still one of my favourite matches to this date. I really Progress has got a special place in my heart.
Yeah, definitely. How do you think the company's going to go now? Jim Smallins said he's going to leave.
Truthfully, I don't really know. I mean, I've kind of kept an eye off of Progress. There was a real not anything between me and them personally. There was just some I speculated ripple effects from WWE towards like mid 2017, where I made the decision to walk away from Progress for my own mental health more than anything, and I've kind of really kept my eye off it. Really, I haven't really followed much of what they've been doing. I'm aware that it's changing a lot, and it's very much got WWE's standprint on it now. But yeah, I mean, I hope it does. I hope it continues to do well. I mean, I saw, at least this past weekend, I saw that, you know, Ali Pali did very well. It was still selling out. So, you know, I hope that continues to happen, because, you know, Progress is, I think, as much as Allstar Wrestling and certain other promotions have made like a good point in British wrestling history, and I think Progress Wrestling is certainly one of them that if you was to ever write a book about British wrestling, I think now Progress has certainly earned its stripes to make that book, and all the changes that they've helped to make, and, you know, all the progress, pardon the pun, that they've helped to make in the, you know, since their inception in 2012.
Yeah, so it's been a strange couple of months of British wrestling. You've got the closure of Defiance and Chaos, and the cancellation of the OWE tour, and the problems the Red Pro have had recently, and that promoter from Broken Ring last week. So the phrase "wrestlers dead" has been thrown around social media recently. So
truthfully, I find that laughable. Yeah. I don't think British wrestling's dead at all. I mean, that's happening. People are saying that on Twitter, but at the same time, like, this past Saturday, I was doing the Hull City Hall for NGW with 1,000 people there, which they run 4 times a year and can draw that crowd, if not more, especially towards the end of the year. Ali Pali was sold out. You know, this Future Shock was sold out, and Brian Dixon's still running very well. I've just come off a very busy, probably one of the busiest summers I've ever done in a long time. I was wrestling 7 days a week for 6 weeks, constantly, and once a week I was always at the Bridlington Spa as well, which isn't a holiday camp, you know what I mean, it's a rented out venue, and there was always at least getting 400 in there every week for Mega Slam Wrestling. So the idea that British wrestling is dead is, you know, I think that people kind of look towards the niche market and see what's going on there and worry about that. But I mean, Brian Dixon is a good example of this. I mean, he's been around for over 4 decades now, and he's seen the rise and fall of that type of stuff. But because he's always targeted family audiences, he's always had a business, and I think that's the same for New Generation Wrestling, NGW. It's been my home promotion since 2008, and they've always gone after that audience, and subsequently they've just continued to grow and thrive and become, you know, as big as they are today and as busy as they are today.
Yeah, I've heard people complaining about WWE NXT robbing so many stars, but it's just made space for the main event's just been cleared out for other stars like Chris Brooks and Chris Ridgway and Lucas Steele.
It's gonna evolve. Do you know what I mean? That's wrestling. It's always going to evolve. People are going to move up. People are going to go to different places, and it makes me laugh how people are getting so upset by WWE taking these people. It's like, well, they've been doing this for literally decades.
Yes.
It's just because at first they was very generous in saying these aren't going to be exclusive contracts. You can still work elsewhere. That very rarely happens, and at least in the past 2 decades, they've never allowed that.
No, definitely.
Do you know what I mean? Like, people have been spoiled to an extent, and for them to now get really upset by this, I just think, well, you know, you've as a company, they've got to come to a point where they've got to look after their best interests and their investment, and yeah, I completely get it. What WWE is doing there, and like you say, it opens up space for new talent to come through. You know, the wrestling industry always evolves and always grows, and we're always going to be on the lookout for new talent coming up, and this just creates those opportunities.
There's so many great wrestlers come through, like Gene Money and Carl Noir, Warren Banks, the MJMO.
Noir as well. I mean, I'm OJMO Michael. I remember spotting Michael at a seminar I did for Darryl Allen down at Knuckleox Gym, and I just instantly there's something about this kid. He's going to go far, and he wants it, and he was dedicated. And yeah, Cara Noir, he's been around for a long time, and not that many people knew him, but he was just finding this character and, you know, finding himself in the ring, and, you know, looking at him now, finally getting the adulation that he deserves, in my opinion.
He's somebody I really need to see live because I've seen videos of him at Wrestling Resurgence and at Riptide.
Oh yeah, that entrance is an experience. It really is. It really is.
Do you see Millie McKenzie's version of it?
I haven't. No. I've heard about it, but I haven't seen it. No.
It was really funny.
Yeah.
This is Shreddy Breck, aka Mr. Clangin' and Bangin', and you are listening to Broken but Glorious, because this ain't no gimmick, it's a lifestyle.
Alright, so we get the reason you're here. So Frontline and WrestleGate's dual events on the 5th of October at the Rushcliffe Arena in Nottingham. The show also has WrestleTalk doing a show as well. So 2 great looking cards. What should the listeners expect from this event?
I mean, both Frontline and WrestleGate offer that, that hard-hitting, fast-paced style. Frontline's kind of been its own little entity, and it's got the. I've only appeared for them once so far. This will be my second appearance for them, but they've got a cool little system there that they've got going on with like the students and like the young lions and stuff. And I really like how those shows are. For myself, I mean, I'm stepping in the ring on Frontline in the afternoon with Rampage Brown, yes. On the evening with Dean Allmark. 2 people that I could talk so much about. I mentioned when I got to Allstar how it was my biggest learning experience, and partly that was because Rampage Brown took me under his wing when I got there, and he started teaching me. I mean, to this day, I regard him as the best wrestler in this country, probably in Europe, and that opinion has not changed in like 10 years that I've now known him. He's got such a believability about everything that he does, and he can always impress me. Every time I watch him, I'm just so impressed by him, and he taught me so much. I've got nothing but respect for him. And then Dean Allmark, it was funny when I was a kid going to watch those shows, my 2 favourite wrestlers, my 2 favourite British wrestlers was Robbie Dynamite and Dean Allmark.
Yes.
And when I joined Allstar and I started to wrestle these guys and learn from them, I was like, this is, I had to kind of pinch myself with it. And I've had the privilege of wrestling Dean on so many occasions now, and I just love it every single time. Like, I've got, again, nothing but respect for him. He's been around for a long time and he still loves it. And at times, even when this becomes testing for me, and I've had thoughts before about wanting to quit, I look at someone like Dean and I think, well, Dean hasn't. Dean kept going. Dean loves it. So I almost feel at times like I owe it to people like him.
Yes, definitely.
So getting to wrestle him is, and again, we haven't like I said, we used to wrestle quite a lot, but we haven't wrestled one-on-one for a long while now. I think we had a brief encounter at All-Star earlier this year at a one-off event, but yeah, we haven't, especially in the environment of a WrestleGate audience, which are always spectacular crowd, and the 2 that I've done there. So yeah, I'm very excited for that entire day. I know that I'm probably going to be waking up and feeling a little worse for wear the following day after those 2 matches.
Would you be hoping the matches were the other way round, with the Brown being such a powerhouse and then teams being more technical? So you might.
I know, right? But the thing is, like, me and Dean just hold nothing back. When we get in there with each other, we just paste these. So yeah, I've got a rough day ahead of me, but like, it's one that I'm excited for. I know that I'm going to have 2 very enjoyable contests, and I'm very confident that the audience are going to enjoy both those matches just as much as I'm going to enjoy doing them.
So with certain wrestlers that you've wrestled lots of times, like Rampage and Dean, do you have like pretty much a match laid out in place because you've got like the spots?
Know what? Not often, to be fair. I mean, the person I've wrestled the most is El Ligero. I think we ended up in the match. He knows the exact number. I think it's like 220 odd times or something like that. And sometimes in the summer we'd have like a go-to match. But quite often, especially in these type of events, like, I don't want to be like stifled creatively. I like to come in and have some new ideas and fresh ideas and a fresh approach to the match, and especially after all these years, like, I'd hate to be stepping in the ring in 2019 relying on stuff that I was doing in 2012, because to me that means that I haven't evolved or progressed as a wrestler in 7 years. So yeah, I always take a different approach to these matches. It always depends to me on A, the environment, B, the story of the match going into it. I mean, some matches have a bit more, of a standpoint of a story going into the contest, and then others, it's just an exhibition match. But I don't really have those, like, once or twice might have those few things, like, on the summer run with certain individuals, but for the most part now, I like to be creative in what I do.
Yeah, because you always heard back in the day is that Jody Fleisch, Johnny Storm, they had the Fleisch Storm match, and
Yeah.
Yeah, so I saw WrestleTalk at WrestleMediaCon last year. It was such a funny show. I'm sure Luke Ollie and the rest of the team are going to bring something amazing to the show. So I'll put ticket information in the description below the interview.
Hi, this is the Asian sensation Kanji, and you're listening to Broken But Glorious.
So I think I'll finish on a... I think it's a fun question. So
Okay, yeah, sure.
So if aliens invaded the Earth, let's say they were Predator, Klingons type aliens rather than Macamee type aliens, and they challenged the Earth to a 4-on-4 Survivor Series match, you were chosen to captain Team Earth. Which 3 wrestlers would you want to be on your team to represent the Earth?
Oh, God. Okay. Robbie Dynamite, because he's probably the toughest wrestler I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
Finley.
Wow, yes.
In his prime. Who's completing this for me? You know what, Mick Foley, because if somebody's gonna be able to take a paste and then continue, it's Foley.
Yeah.
So Mick Foley in his prime, Fit Finley in his prime, Robbie Dynamite in his prime.
Oh yes, that's great.
And I'd be just meeting the slaughter there, to be honest. I'd be just going in and hoping those 3 can get us through it.
But you're the first person not to pick Braun Strowman.
Yeah, I'm kind of fodder.
Right, so before we go, do you want to promote your social media?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram under the handle at Nathan_Cruz, CRUZ 9090. I have a Facebook fan page. My Facebook page, like my actual Facebook, is private. Please don't add me on there. It's just for close friends and family. I don't keep it away from business. But yeah, you can find me on social media and on those, like mainly Instagram and Twitter, the 2 that I'm most active on.
And MySpace.
I think my MySpace is dead, buried and gone. I haven't logged in since 2010, I think.
Right, so I'll put links in the description to all the your links. I've really enjoyed speaking to you. I'd love to have you on again in the future.
Oh, thanks very much, Christopher. I enjoyed being on.